think we're recording. What's going on, guys? Joey here. Isaac, featuring Isaac this time. Grant is making a return appearance because he's willing and able. And
Yep.
yeah, we're gonna give you guys some more questions. Try to keep it just over 20 minutes, and yeah, we'll start off. So first question, kind of interesting. Um, the question originally was something along the lines of like, when should you change coaches? When is it not working out with your coach? Or like, what's the sign of like a bad coach? Um, so I thought I might change it a little bit and just say like, what is the minimum? And the answer is gonna vary based on the person. So I suppose it would be kind of hard to answer like very specifically. But like, what is the minimum that a newer, let's say you're a brand new lifter, right, coming in, what is the minimum that they should look for, or yeah, that they should look for when it comes to hiring a coach? Um, Obviously, like if there's a new lifter, they're probably not going to want like just a program with no coaching, right? Or they're probably not going to do well with once a week check-ins and things like that. So what are some things that you guys think that new lifters really need in the beginning, and what kind of habits they should be working on building when it comes to working with a coach? And I will start with we'll start with Isaac first. Isaac, what do you think? What do you think are some things that the pups really need early on?
Okay, so I'm gonna go with this from like a minimalistic approach, a little
Yeah.
bit different of an approach, but like, so in my opinion, I think that like, especially like newer lifters, a priority would be not having a coach that costs too much. I think it at that point you are almost like you're worried too much about that than like the training, and you're trying to like push the coach for answers, and you're almost like trying to like really get too much. So like if you're like a brand new lifter, I think finding a newer coach or a coach that is like very like just a cheaper coach, I think is a good starting point. Um and then as long as they can like give you a program and respond to you, like you said, like one time a week is like not enough. But if they can respond to you like a couple times a week, I would say that that's like bare minimum. I think that as you kind of progress in your powerlifting timeline, things do change, right? Like if newer lifters, I don't think need a top of the line coach. And like I think a lot of the top of the line coaches, if you went to them, would say, "Hey, listen, man, like you don't know anything. Like just come back to me in like a little bit." And so I think that like as long as they have like a program or like a coach that can kind of guide them along, I think that that's basically the minimum. And then as you progress into lifting and like the powerlifting like journey, that is when you kind of start looking to check more boxes in coaches.
What do you got for me, Grant?
Yeah, I mean, all of that's great. I think beyond like, the minimalistic stuff, I think obviously, while this is still kind of minimalist, you need to find somebody who's like educated, right? I think, if you just pick a cheap coach who doesn't really know what they're doing, there's a chance that you can have like, maybe like a year of training where there's just underlying issues that don't get you where you want to be, right? But especially with newer people, I think you need somebody that's responsive because although it's kind of a slippery slope with like giving a lot of feedback because you don't want the lifter to overthink. I think if they're going like weeks or sometimes even months with some coaches without getting like responses, then they have no direction. They don't really know what to do. And I think that especially with newer lifters needing like keys on technical things a lot more, they need to be reminded of it. So yeah.
When you started that, I had a question, and then as you went, like you said something that made me smirk, which is good. It's a good smirk, but I forgot what I was gonna ask. Um, yeah, I mean, just to add to that, I would say if you're brand new, like Isaac said, like, I don't know. There's cost usually. It can reflect. I don't think cost necessarily reflects quality all the time. I think there's definitely people that charge a lot, and they'll do like once a week check-in. So it's like, I mean, that's not what you want. You know what I'm saying for a
Yeah.
kid. For me personally, I think like Grant said, you need somebody educated. You need somebody like your form has to be like I get a lot of parents that will email me and say, "Hey, I have a daughter. She wants to work with like Haley, for example, but like I'm really like nervous or like I don't know what this is about. Like I want her form to be good. Like what's gonna happen?" And then I'll just tell them, you know, a big focus early on is making sure that the lifter can move through space in a way that doesn't cause them pain. They're not like constantly like deadlifting or squatting with like low back rounding or benching with bad form to where they're gonna mess up their shoulders or something. So those types of things. But yeah, I think you need to have someone who can help you. I think you need someone that can help you day to day or every other day that can really just like check on what you're doing and make sure that you're moving in the right direction. And you definitely need somebody who's educated and look for people look for people that have worked with people like similar to you or like what I like doing? This is what I like doing. Um like let's take little Ken for an example, right? If you guys like heard what Russ said in the King of the Lifts about me, he was saying that Joey works like diversity. He has like a lot of different types of people that he could progress. And I think that's a really good sign. And I know you guys work with like all different types of people. You know what I'm saying too. And what I like, if you take Ken for example, you could just type in Ken's name in the USAPL database, and they have like that graph of like their progress and everything, and you can see like just it should be like an arrow that's like going like this, but like up to the right. You know what I mean? Or so I think is this way for you guys watching. That way over the years, is this person progressing? Are their numbers moving up? And if there's been no kind of like dip and then just level off, you want to really see that up and to the right. Now, a dip here and there is normal. Obviously, like it's only gonna plot. I think it's only gonna plot the meets that they do, and the times, but you really want to see that sort of upward trajectory. Granted, like there's like context for everything. Like sometimes, like Russ, for example, was like up, 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 and then we had injury, and then it was a big jump up, right? But that's because we weren't injured and we went up a weight class. So, if that matters to you, if you don't care about weight class and you just want to see progress, then you could look at like 99% of his meets, right? And then, so you want to be able to research the lifter, like and see like is that coach working with someone that has like similar ish technical issues as me or kind of I feel like I could relate to, or maybe that coach themselves is almost similar to you, right? And have they been making progress, and do you think that would work for you? And over time you can kind of like find the differences, and maybe you get in with the coach and you make friends with the team and you can talk to the community, and then you can really start to like bounce ideas and get feedback. And um Isaac, I don't know if your guy, I think your kids do this where like they might all be friends and they'll like help each other in the session, like hey, don't overshoot, or like yeah, go for it or whatever, and then it gets to you, right? So like you're coaching all of them and they're all helping each other, and then like it's almost like another line of defense, which is like a bonus.
That's
Yeah.
that's actually I think a really good like now that you like talk about it, I think having like if you can find a coach that has a team of like lifters, especially like a team of younger lifters, they kind of like it's like what's the a rising tide
Brings up all ships. Yeah, yeah,
brings up all
yeah.
ships. Yeah, yeah. And so it's like it's kind of like that where if you can like get yourself into a team
Like a little
of like
community.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. That I think that would be like that's also very very big because there's a sense of like security in that as well, where it's
We
like you
got
go to a meet and like, you're a part of a team.
the Cult of Will. We got the Whistlers. We got the Grinch gang. Like it's just everybody just they find that little community. So I think that was a good answer. I know it took a little while on it, but like a lot of younger lifters, and I might bring you guys on, just do a whole video on like what does a new lifter need, because there's a lot of kids like even with me I give them options. They're like so overwhelmed, like holy shit, like who do I pick? Um okay, how to work back after an injury. This person was specifically asking about the knee. If you guys have any specific like experiences with an injury, like regarding the knees or the elbow or Isaac your shoulder, right? And you could just talk about like how you worked back from that. I'll talk about my knee first to give you guys time. Um, but so for my knee, I was a really young lifter, and I have like really strong legs, right? And I was going like I had just exclusively like been doing bodybuilding stuff, so I was like big leg machines, leg presses, all these things. So I had like these big muscles. And then once I went into powerlifting, I got into sumo, and I would just like I was very like violent with my initiation, and I was just like messing up that patellar tendon. I was also squatting in heels with a lot of knee travel, and I was really narrow, and I was just basically doing everything on the patella, and then it eventually started to break down, and I got really bad like tendinosis. Um, so then it was like really difficult to get rid of it. At the time, I did do a PRP injection, which like I feel like jumped me forward a couple months in my recovery timeline. Um, but for the latter half of that, I think changing to flats really helped. So like basically altering my training in a way where I was still able to train the lift, but I wasn't emphasizing the part of my knee that would hurt, right? And then I went to conventional, so there's like less knees obviously there versus sumo. So I squatted in flats and then went to conventional, and that really helped a lot. And then I just doing a lot of hamstring stuff to like work the area opposite, and then working the abduction, adduction, or yeah, adduction, abduction, or other way around with my hand. And then just working everything, like strengthening every single part of the knee other than that area. And then once that area got a little better, going really light, like leg extension with no weight, like just nothing, like just do the movement with some resistance, and then after like a week you could add a tiny bit, and then maybe I wait 2 weeks at that before I add more, and now I could do like a lot more. So that's kind of how I did it for my knee. Grant, I'll let you go next. I don't know if you have any like super crazy like injury other than maybe your back before me.
So yeah, I've been fortunate enough to be pretty resilient. I don't know if you remember, Joey, it was like right around the time we started. Well, it happened before. I smashed like my finger,
Yeah, I remember
which was
that.
pretty bad.
Yeah.
But that's not really like muscular related,
Hmm.
obviously. I kind of just had to heal up. I think like around Collegiate Nationals 2021, my knee was bothering me a little bit. Essentially for that, I think like the cause of it was just too much stress. We didn't really have to add in any like rehabilitation movements or anything like that. It was just like, let's reduce the stress. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
Let's take the secondary days later. And I think as power lifters, our number one goal when we have an injury isn't to get to pain-free movement right away, but kind of what Joey talked about. It's like, how can we work around it, still get stimulus, still like try to progress or get stronger while that pain is like slowly improving, you know? When you just take a lot of time off, you can get super detrained and it just ends up getting kind of ugly. I think
You could be like worse
earlier,
even, like way
yeah,
worse. Yeah.
or it could get worse. Um, and earlier I also had a pec issue. The pec issue was a little bit different. This was before I started with Joey, but with certain injuries, I think that certain like you just need to do certain things. For example, I had a pec injury that stemmed from just like a lot of scapular tightness from arching and retracting really hard. And for that, I had to do motions that like protraction of the scapula, freeing up the rib cage, things like that. Um, and if I would have just tried to work through that, it probably would have just stayed bad and continued
Yeah.
to be bad. But you know, we started to do some hook lying, things like that, and then like the pec got freed up. So I guess it depends on your situation. But the most important thing, in my opinion, is just make sure that like we can still get stimulus that aids the comp lift a little bit. Um, and it is getting better. Like for example, I know somebody that lifts with me who he does 1 rep of low bar squat a week because his back.
One rep,
1 rep, like he
like
does a
warm up,
single on
top
low bar
single.
squat.
That's it.
Yep, and then he'll do like SSB for everything else because he doesn't want that injury to get bad.
Is he
But he
good?
still makes progress and it's all
Is he
good.
good? Yeah.
Yeah.
I've heard like I think Wilson has to do something similar to that. Like he does like a lot of accessory that isn't the comp lift because like his hips get annihilated like with a lot of low bar volume. Um, I could be wrong. Maybe he hears this and goes, "Actually, I'm the specificity king." So I don't know. Anyway, Isaac, talk to us about one of your prominent injuries and what are some things that you did you could piggyback off of what we said to like help you kind of bring you back to a point where I can literally program for you just whatever I want, and I don't have to really worry about anything.
So I'll say three things. So the first one is going to be find what movement hurts the most and avoid it. I think that a lot of
Yeah.
the times people like there will be a movement that like really hurts them and they'll just continually try to push that and push that and push that. When in reality, like if you can remove one movement, as long as it's not like the competition movement, I think that that can be beneficial towards your recovery. If it is the competition movement, then I branch off into the second section of my answer, which would be I have a lot of my athletes that have an injury or coming back from an injury work off of a pain scale. I think that a lot of the times people see the RPE and they think, okay, I need to push to this RPE. It doesn't matter how my body feels. And then they'll push it past what they know their body can handle only because they think they need to hit the RPE. When in reality, I'll just be like, hey, if it's anything above a 3 out of a 10 pain, like do not push over that, because it's like, in what sense does that make sense to continually pushing and drive that pain up and up and up? There's no point, even during a meet prep, like there's no point to just like continually push into a 5, 6 out of 10 pain. And then the third thing would be if you're coming back from an injury, you're probably expecting to just like jump back into it and hit pre-injury numbers and just like go right back into it, and that's not going to happen. The way that if it's like a bad injury, and like for me, for example, my pec going through, well, I tore my pec February of 2021 and then tore my AC joint April of 2022, and it's like every time I had these injuries, like large injuries, I have to fully reset mentally where I'm at. And there's no, okay, I benched 500. I need to hit this weight at this RPE. Like, no, it's literally, I'm starting from scratch. If I can bench the bar, cool, I'm happy. If I can bench a plate, okay, cool, I'm happy. If I can bench 2 plates, cool, I'm happy. If the next week it hurts and I can only bench a plate, that's cool. I could only bench the bar a month ago. And so it's like a lot of that is mental, where it's like you have to forget about what you've done previously, because if you don't, you'll continually just drive yourself into the dirt.
Yeah. You said it's almost like you're giving RP to the pain. Like you're giving
Yeah.
like a pain
Yep.
RP number or
Yeah.
something. When I was getting ready for the second Arnold, where I was big, so 2020, was it 2020? I think it was 2020. Um, my adductor exploded. Like it literally like it like popped in training and then it bruised, so I definitely tore something. But I was so close to the Arnold, and mentally I was like, the world is getting shut down. I can't believe this meet is even happening. I need to just make it. And I was like, whatever happens to me, I'll like we're about to get like locked down anyway. Like I'll I'll just be in bed healing or something. So I did push through that, and I did, I squatted 750, and it hurt like a bitch after. It was painful. And I don't recommend doing that, but at the end of the day, like that's a game time decision. That's a, that's like okay, like I gotta decide what I want to do right now. Do I want to call this? Do I want to baby this thing? I'm super strong right now, or do I want to compete and like this is it, man. Like I'm willing to do it. And then I thought about I had competed with a really bad pec strain like beyond what I would recommend anybody do. And I was like, I could snap on the under that. I think I only hit 440 that meet. I was a 105, I believe, and I just said, fuck it, I'm gonna do it. And luckily, I was okay, but it was painful. It did heal up. Soft tissue things, me personally, I'm a little more aggressive with my own lifting. Whereas like if it's a joint or something, I'm like, you don't want to really mess with that. But those,
That's also like being a gamer. Like
yeah,
there's
yeah,
a
yeah.
difference between just like taking it light and just like knowing that you can. I know it sounds really stupid, but like
Yeah,
knowing you can push through
I mean, look
something.
what Russ did at Nationals. Like I told him, I must have told them like 5 times during those last 6 weeks. I was like, we don't have to do this. Like I don't care what anybody says. Like we don't have to do this. Like if you are hurt and it's bad, like I don't want you to like be seriously hurt or anything. And he was like, I think I can do it. But so we just did like the minimum, like we got a little bit of stimulus and called it. Kind of like Grant with the guy hitting the one set and that was it. We would do
Yep.
like a single and then like the lightest singular back down set that we could tolerate, and it would aggravate it. It would aggravate it a little bit. It would be pissed off and it would hurt. But then next week it would be better. Like it would be aggravated next week, but it was not as bad as last week. So we know, okay, we're moving in the right direction. Let's keep this sort of method going, and let's try to get to a good place. And that's a tricky thing. And definitely having a coach to oversee and help you through stuff like that. I mean, you'd be surprised like what you could get through when you have somebody helping you with that stuff. Um, okay, this next,
Good 2 questions in.
yeah, dude, no, we're gonna keep. I'm gonna keep. We'll make it. We're giving good thorough answers. We like the
Give them bonus.
details.
Yeah.
So there's a couple questions here that are worded in a way where it's almost impossible to answer because the answer lies within what do you want, right? Like for example, we have a young lifter asking, should high school athletes compete? Like that is a hard question to answer because we don't know what their priorities are. The way I see it, if you're that young, I mean, why not? Like if you mess up, that's actually like great experience for you, and you'll be able to learn from that. Another question here is asking, you know, like should they deadlift sumo or conventional? Again, we don't know anything about you. It's very hard um, to answer that. But on that last part, what are some things that you guys look for when helping someone decide like if they should pull sumo or conventional? I'll go with Isaac first.
Oh, I like the way Grant described it. Okay, I'll go first.
We could go. Well, no, we could do Grant. We could do Grant. Go ahead, Grant. Go ahead, Grant.
All right. Well, obviously, if you're well built for the deadlift and you have like long arms, short torso, maybe it's not really gonna matter. You just pick what feels better essentially. And you can kind of just run with it. At the end of the day, like people overcomplicate it like crazy. But with like normally like some bigger lifters have like maybe some lacking mobility, maybe they have like uneven levels of like internal and external rotation at the hips, so like when they try to do a sumo deadlift and they try to get that abduction of like getting the knees out, right, it can be very uncomfortable, or maybe they just like can't do it at all. And then in addition to that, on the other hand, maybe when you're pulling conventional, it's like your levers and just how big you are, it doesn't allow you to get like a neutral pelvis or a neutral spine, for example. And then it's like, okay, our lockout is so bad, so maybe we have to go to sumo so we can actually achieve that position. So I guess it's like it lies, like Joey said, like you have to know so much to really know what's going to be better for you. But I would say it's like which one feels better, which one can we achieve like neutrality in and like good positioning, right? And then which one can we like progress pain free?
Isaac, what do you got?
Yeah, I think it really comes down to I think it's kind of an odd place because I think it does come down to if sumo feels good and is healthy, it doesn't mess up your hips, because I have a lot of lifters who force sumo and then their hips just get destroyed. But if you can do sumo and it's a healthy, comfortable position and you prefer that over conventional, then I think that's gonna be a better fit for you than somebody who lifts conventional but has just been trying to like force a sumo. I think a lot of people think that like it's like a low bar situation where like, oh, low bar feels bad, let me force it and it will get better and I'm going to be stronger because of it. Whereas I think like a sumo deadlift is different than that, where it's some people literally just they cannot physically handle that weight in that position. And that's the hard part with it is like if you're kind of on the edge, but you have a really good coach who can give you really good positional cues or ways to think about it, they can almost artificially increase the way you can sumo deadlift by teaching you how to correctly do it. So it's kind of like a gray area where it's like it may feel just okay, but you're stronger in it, but you don't exactly know how to lift in it. That's where having a good coach comes in handy because they're able to really utilize your leverages and make you feel the best in that position.
I think I'd also like to add that with sumo, I think there's generally more moving parts. And when you have a lifter that doesn't even know how to like hinge properly, for example, it's like, what are we even doing? Why are we trying to do sumo and like focus on so many different things when we don't even know how to hinge and we don't even know how to get neutral? Whereas, like, for example, with me and Joey, we're kind of nubby. Like the arms aren't too long. Like our conventional, like we got to work for it on conventional, right? But I
Yeah.
had already been lifting for a while, and that's why I decided to make the switch to sumo, where it's like I can handle the moving parts, I know how to hinge, I can get into a better position. So yeah, I mean, I think first priority is like actually learning how to deadlift, learning how to educate the pelvis and the hips on how to move and like get into a good
Educate
position.
the pelvis. There you
Yep,
go.
you
That's
gotta
a good one.
educate it because some people, like maybe you have like a slight anterior pelvic tilt and you don't even know it, and it's like, damn, my deadlift feels so hard off the ground, like impossible. And it's like we gotta educate the pelvis. We gotta learn how to actually get into like a neutral position, because then deadlifts can actually be optimal and actually feel good. So I think that's the first priority before even worrying about like trying to do sumo and like trying to get upright, trying to get your hips into the bar, learning how to wedge, things like that, right? Because there are so many lifters, I think, that they're doing sumo and they're like so hyper focused on lifting weight and stuff, and they don't even understand the basics.
Yeah, it's like walk before you run, and I think conventional is like the foundational movement that everyone should practice in some way, even if you start with RDLs, just to build. And it like even for me, doing even back extensions, but really just using like the glutes and keeping a neutral, like making sure that your back is straight and you're only using your glutes and your hams to do it. It's like it's hard. It's like hard mentally because you gotta like you're controlling one section of your body to stay rigid and just immobile, but it is mobile, so it's hard to do it, right? And then you're only moving with the glutes. I mean, I think it's a tough thing. I mean, I got to go slow. I got to really concentrate. Even for me, at this training, used to do things like that. Okay, how is undershooting? What in what circumstances would undershooting be bad for progress? We'll start with Isaac.
I mean, it's a trick question because maybe it isn't, you know?
Keep
I
going,
think
keep
that
going.
the one of the only times that like it is if your coach is specifically wanting you to push a movement, or like they're trying to learn what is a technical breakdown of yours, and they just never get to that point. I think it's a super like case to case basis, but it's like in general, like undershooting is 1,000 times better than overshooting. I think that people who almost resort to thinking that undershooting can be bad are just like overthinking it, and it's just
Yeah.
like, listen, man, just lift. Like you're
To
gonna
cut you
have
off real
points.
quick. Sorry to
Yeah,
cut
go
you
ahead.
off real quick. When I first like 2016, me and John Hack coming off of Worlds, we're the hot business right now, and I'm telling everybody like RPEs the business, like auto regulate, go based on what you have, like da da da, this and that. And there was at that time, and this is how I know I've really changed the space with the help of my lifters. At that time, there was so much pushback as to like the percentage, and older like guys are like, oh, like you're never gonna go hard enough in the gym if you're gonna always train that way. Like, what do you mean 2 reps in the tank on a single? Like, you're never pushing it. Like, how are you supposed to get stronger? There was so much of that back then, and I bet you some kids listening are hearing that for the first time right now. Like, literally right now, that's the first time they're hearing that. Where that was like the number one thing that people would say when I was like, guys, man, like this Mike T guy has a good idea. Like this RPE stuff, like if you modify it a little bit, like it could work really well for you. They're like, nope, you're not pushing yourself. You're always gonna sandbag. But what I have found, and I would like Grant to give his perspective when I finish this point. What I have found is, like, if I think of all my lifters, I want to say 85% of them are doing just fine with that. And then you have like like maybe one or two or maybe 5% that they're erring a little bit on the easy side, and then I might give them an AMRAP here and there to push them a little bit, or I might give them, I might actually intentionally write a RPE 9 so that way they know, like, oh snap, like Joey wants me to go heavy on this day. But it's not too bad. It's very, and then very rarely maybe like one or two people that are like, I mean now, because I mean I work with a lot of the same people. People don't I mean, if they overshoot, it's like, hey coach, for my 10 million followers on TikTok, I gotta overshoot this deadlift, and I'm like, I mean, I don't know. You don't even have a meet coming up. Go ahead. You know what I mean? Like, it's your life, brother. Like, I'm just here to help you be strong. Um, but for serious powerlifters that have a meet, like Isaac said, you don't like if you're omega overshooting, uh, we have to get rid of that fatigue, and that fatigue like can be very invasive, and it's gonna cut into like it's gonna cut into like our plans, like what we're trying to do like long term. Grant, what do you think about undershoots?
So I guess every single lifter is a bit different. I think bottom line is though, every single lifter needs a certain amount of stimulus to progress, and every single lifter can like recover from a certain amount of stimulus. So we want to be operating like between those two ranges, right? Because if we're above, it's like we're constantly fatigued, we could get hurt. If we're below, we're just not progressing at all, right? So I think, like I said, the scenario is different between person to person, right? So, for example, a certain lifter could need like a certain amount of stimulus, which comes from obviously volume, intensity, and frequency. Um, and they squat 2 days a week, let's say. I'm using that as an example because that's common, I think.
Yeah.
I know we talked about this a little bit before. If you compare a lifter like myself and Sean Mills, we're pretty similar, same weight class. We squat close to the same amount. But like for me, I think that when I push both days of squat a week and I'm going heavy on the secondary day, it's just too much. I'm over what I can recover from. Whereas with him, he's operating within that range still, and it's still good. So for me, it's like it's okay if I'm undershooting the secondary day because I'm still like that's effectively moving me from doing too much to doing an amount that I can recover from and an amount that's making me better. So I think that it depends on like what scenario is for you. I usually communicate to people like, okay, we're benching 3 days a week. We obviously have a primary day that's going to be heavy, a secondary day that's going to be relatively heavy. But right now, we have no need to be pushing the middle day. The middle day can just be easy. Joey said before he like takes 275 on middle days, but he benches almost 500. And it's like, we just don't need that stimulus. So let's undershoot. So I guess it depends on the situation, right? As long as you're getting enough work in and you're operating between those two like pillars, right? I think it's okay to undershoot here and there. Definitely a lot better than overshooting, like we said. But yeah, it's so situational.
Yeah, I don't think people should be so scared of undershooting. I mean, I'll like usually, and you guys will probably do this too. Like if I see someone that's like going light all the time, like I mean, if you're getting an AMRAP, you're gonna push it. Like you have to, like you know, say like,
Yep.
and if they say like, oh, I'm not really sure where I'm at, and if they have good form and I feel like they can do it, then we'll give them an AMRAP and they'll be like let's say they're doing like a set of five at RPE 7 with the plus. So the plus means they're gonna AMRAP at the end, and they do like 11 reps. Then obviously like they were way undershooting, right? So
I've had a couple of people like that
right like
for
and you can kind of help them like figure out where they're at.
yeah.
Which that I think that ties into this last question. Um, Somebody said like, how can you combine RPE with percent? Grant, I think we talked about it in the chat 1 or 2 weeks ago. Um, but I'll let you go first, Grant. Like, what is an example of using RPE and then maybe throwing in some kind of percentage on a back down, maybe something like that. I'll let you take it.
So I think I've definitely seen some like template programs. They'll do something like top triple at 6, 7, whatever, and then they'll do like literally straight sets like 3 by 5, 70% or whatever. I don't love that method because that is literally taking like Joey talked about, like the old head method. Like you're taking exact percentage. That's the amount of work we're doing, right? A way that I like to incorporate like percentage-based training with RPE is called minus percentage sets. And effectively, what we're doing is I could have a lifter take a single, and then I could have a lifter take like a set of 5. Both of those will be at a certain RPE, but after that first set of 5, we'll take off like 5%, 7.5%, 10%, depending on the lift and the day, obviously. And then we'll like almost methodically remove some weight based like it's still like undulating though. So we're still taking what they're good for on the day and removing a percentage so that we're effectively doing percentage work, but it's like tied to the RPE and tethered to that RPE in a sense.
Of that day, of like how you're feeling on that day, which I
Yep.
think what people need to understand about RPE is like you can only do what you have on that day, and if you take a set max from fucking last peak meet whatever, the circumstances for you to hit that number might be very different than what you did right now. So you have like, let's say you hit a 500-pound squat and it was a perfect day. So if you're basing all your percentages off of that, now some programs you take off some percent and then you base it off that so you could get through the program. but it's not accounting for the day, to the fluctuations in your life, what's happening in your day. Maybe you overshot at the end of the week or something happened. You had to help somebody move. You were handling at a meet, whatever. If you go in with the percentage based off of something that like is not taking into account context, then you can end up doing way more than you should have on that day or doing way less than you should have on that day, right? Like you just didn't get better at all today because you were doing like stupidly light work, you know what I'm saying? So, I think what Grant is talking about is pretty good because on that day, you are taking your single, which is going to be what you have in that day, and then you're basing the percent off of today, right now, not based off of what I did, you know, however many blocks ago when I was at my absolute best. Da 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 da. Um, and I know like a lot with those older programs, like people each cycle like they have to write a higher max. Like they have to like nope, got better. Even though it was like 5 inches high, like overshot like crazy, like died out of the hole. Gotta write more. Gotta add that extra 10 pounds on the sheet. And yeah, it's just percentage has to take into account context for it to be like decent, and even then like things change. You could even change set to set, day to day. Isaac, what do you think about, is there a way of combining RPE with percent, um that, yeah, like how would you do it, and is it mandatory? Is it like the best, or is it just a tool in the toolbox? What do you think?
Yeah, I think you guys summed it up pretty well. I would say that like to go just straight percentage is a lot harder, um, especially like higher percentages. If you're going to go like with no RPE based on the day and you're just strictly going to prescribe a percentage based work, the chance of you prescribing like what would be a hard set for like a just a regular day, the chance of that going wrong is going to be higher than if you're just programming lower percentage work. But with that is like if you're programming lower percentage work, if you know you can push a little bit more, then like why wouldn't you just use RPE? And so I think it does come down to just like you can use percentage in some instances, like the way Grant described was a great way that you can kind of do that. There are problems that arise. There are problems that arise in everything. Like a thing that would arise, like a problem that would arise with that is like maybe a lifter does have an injury and they have those percentage backdowns and they're a chronic like overthinker. And so they think that, okay, like I know that these are prescribed percentages. I know that I'm absolutely beat and my right knee feels like I have a pack of bubble gum in it and I can't like walk, like, but they're going to continue to just like push and push and push instead of just like just drop it down a little bit more, or like let the coach know that they couldn't finish it or things like that. And so I think it is like it's very tricky. And I think that sometimes it can be very beneficial because it's almost like you can force a lifter to do something that they wouldn't do naturally, but then you can also force a lifter to like get hurt or fail or push harder than they need to.
Yeah, I wanted to add on just a little bit
Go
more.
ahead, go ahead.
I think there's like obvious downsides to like percentage-based training. There's also downsides to RPE. And I
100%.
think that like if you have a lifter who maybe you like this is the workout, 3 sets 5 at 6, something pretty simple. But they have the mindset that's like, okay, I'm gonna load 100 kilograms and I'm gonna do that for every single set of 5. I know that especially for more advanced guys, stronger guys who are lifting more weight, obviously, you're gonna do that first set of 5, and you're gonna do that second set of 5, and you're like, damn, that was a little bit
That
harder.
RP is
And then
gonna
you're gonna do that.
climb real
Yeah,
hot
you're gonna do
fast,
that
yeah.
last set of 5, and you're gonna be like, damn, that was like a 9. So unless you're coming into the session with the mindset like, okay, I'm either gonna adjust the weight after the first set, or I'm gonna pick a weight where by the last set I'll hit the RPE. So like it'll be like undershot a little and then slowly climb up. I think incorporating minus percentage backdowns helps that a little bit because with lifters that don't fully understand RPE or maybe just don't understand that, hey, like it is RPE. We can drop that weight,
Or
undulate that weight a little
just
bit.
self-control, really. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. Like if you don't have self-control, then maybe those minus percentage or percentage-based backdowns that are light can be kind of useful because we don't end up taking like a back down that's supposed to be at 6 at 9, and then all of a sudden it's like so much fatigue, we're overshot, we mess up a week of training, it snowballs, like it could be very bad when it's in reality supposed to be something chill.
Yeah, my whole thing is if I believe that a way of training will be the best, then I do everything I can to try to mold that person to that and like teach them to do that in a way that will be better than like it's debatable how much taking a top single then dropping a set percentage versus just having it straight RPE with the backstop and the like the lifters educated like the coach has taught them. Um, you know, you can adjust. You should adjust, right? Uh, I mean, there's some guys like with Weez, right? We're gonna hit our top single. We're gonna hit like a big back down, or even all of you, myself, all of us. That second and third set is gonna be like pathetic. Like it's gonna be, I'm gonna drop it like crazy. On bench, I could do it. On bench, I could probably do it. But that RPE that started at a 7 is probably going to be like a 9. But like on squat, like it'll instantly be a 9 like after the first set. So but yeah, I thought that was a lot of information. So much for 25 minutes bonus material. If you made it to the end, let me get a hashtag real one in the comments cuz you are a real one. I mean, it's it's free game as the rest says, right? Anyway, thank you guys for making it this far. Uh Grant, Isaac, say bye and I'll see you guys later.
Peace.
Later.